My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riff Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriff.com. Our special guest tonight is legendary bassist Rik Fox. He was one of the original members in WASP, and he was also in Steeler and some other bands such as Sin. How you doing tonight, Rik?
Jason, how about yourself?
I'm great. Now, this is the second interview you've done with us, so we'd like to welcome you back to the show. Now, briefly, Rik, since the last interview you did with us, which was almost a little over a year ago, you were briefly in a band called Angelus, and you're no longer in a band. So, do you just want to talk a little bit about, why you're no longer with the band and that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back on the show. Always a pleasure. Second of all, I you call me legendary. I don't.
Well, I say legendary because, like we talked in the first interview, you kind of got this legendary kind of status. I mean, the fact that, you were once a member of WASP, you're once a member of Steeler. These are bands that people have heard of. So, you kind of got a cult following, if you will, a little bit of a fan base going there, a lot more than me and other people got going for ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I've played with legendary players, but that doesn't necessarily make me a legend. So I've just been very blessed to be able to share the stage with legends like Ronnie Dio and Sam Kinison, of course, Ron Keel, Malmsteen, all those people, But that doesn't make me a legend. I was just in the right place at the right time.
That's just kind of my little note there, because to me, you're one of those guys that people may have, you probably have heard the name Rik Fox if you're a hard rock or metal fan, and you may not be able to place the face with the name, but you've heard Rik Fox. Probably a lot of people have, and that's why I say that. And it's kind of interesting. I put it like this: maybe not legendary if you don't want that kind of brand, but I will say this: you're a little footnote, if you will, in the hard rock and metal community. I mean, even people may not even realize that. I know you appeared in the film. What was it? The Decline of Western Civilization, the Metal Years.
Yeah, Metal Years.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're an interesting little footnote in rock. Now, let's talk a little about you have the Keel Fest thing coming up. How did you? Obviously, Ron Keel invited you to take part of it. And like we were saying, you were once in Steeler with him. But I was curious. Did he reach out to you, or did he? How did that all transpire?
I'll backtrack for a second here. Let me answer your Angela's question.
Okay,
first.
sure.
It just looked like a good opportunity. I thought that the songs had some promise and potential.
Uh-huh.
They asked if I would take a shot at it, and I did, and they liked it, and we did a show, and then right after that, it just got weird,
Yeah.
It was not at the same professional level that I'm at, and it was kind of like a toxic kind of a dysfunctional thing, and I said, this is not good for not a good career move, and I left, and that was it. I walked out, and apparently, I guess everybody else has been in the band has walked out too. So let that speak for itself. I don't want to dwell on that.
Yeah.
Let me jump to the Keel thing.
Sure.
What happened was Ron and I have been talking off and on for the last several years.
Wow.
And it used to be a long time ago. If an opportunity ever came up to do a Steeler reunion type thing, would I be interested? And I said, Ron, you need to ask me. Anytime, any place.
Wow. Yeah.
So we've tossed the ball back and forth, if you will, about this over the years, and I guess he's been kind of waiting for the stars to align right, the ducks in a row, and whatever you want to call it. So he's putting on this thing, this Keel Fest, and it's a celebration / anniversary / whatever you want to call it. It's a great thing, and he's doing kind of like a live anthology, maybe.
Wow.
It's going to be Steeler, it's going to be Keel, with Brian J. and Mark Ferrari.
Wow.
Like that. And he's going to do the Ron Keel band. We're going to do 3 hours.
Wow,
he's got a heavy load on his shoulders for the whole night, and he's got to pace himself. I don't think too many singers have tried anything like this. So
that's cool.
I got to hand it to for this,
Wow, and Keel and Steeler's a lot more, I guess, metal than what he did with Keel, but it's all Ron Keel at the end of the day. And the cool thing is, for fans, that would be a cool thing to see. And he probably got the idea because Ron himself has somewhat of a Kiss connection, and Kiss fans for years. They put on these little Kiss expos, and if you got like I think I was talking to you before, Rick, if you got any kind of even like the slightest Kiss connection, there's a chance that these people putting on these events would call you up and say, hey Ron, Gene produced your albums. How would you like to appear at the Kiss Expo? And they're just little fun little events for fans. But typically they're events that are put on by the fans. So I think this is cool that Ron's kind of putting on his own official event for the fans.
Yeah, absolutely, and right in the heartland, Ohio. I mean, that's one of the unsung rock capitals of the United States. I mean, look at the great talent that's come out of there. I know Devo, okay, they're not rock, but Devo came out. I think out of Akron. Chrissy Hine and the Pretenders.
Wow.
A band. There was a local band in the Columbus area who I worked with a singer from. They were called Shop 2. And they were huge in that area. The singer Tommy John was a friend of mine. We worked together long before he passed away. And then, of course, you have, it's the Gods, man. Eric Moore and the Gods.
Yeah.
My friend Mark Chatfield. I mean, that's God's territory. No pun intended.
Yeah.
G-O-D-Z, God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like an honor to be able to go. I've never been to Ohio before, so this is going to be a great, experience for me. And to be able to soak all of that in, and of course, I thank Ron for the opportunity to do this. And he texted me and said, "Are you in?" And I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Ron, let me think for a second." Okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you might have a busy schedule, Ron, but I don't. Sure, I'm there. But let me ask you a little bit about that, Rick. So, obviously, of the original Steeler lineup, you and Ron, everyone's appearing at this event. Now, I was curious. Obviously, Yngwie's off doing his own thing these days, and sadly, recently, I can't remember exactly what he said, but Yngwie Malmsteen's been kind of trashing Steeler in the last couple of weeks. Like, they weren't that band I was in. They weren't really a talented bunch of musicians. I'm like, man, how can you? That's before you had your successful solo career, man. That's the band that got you your start here in the States. How could you even trash anything the band did?
Well, here's how you make lemonade out of those lemons.
Yeah.
This is Paul Stanley's in, okay?
Yeah.
Every time somebody asks Yngwie about Steeler and he talks about Steeler, even if he trash about Steeler, our sales go up and our likes go up and we get more popularity. It's like selling, get publicity in a magazine. Yngwie's giving us free publicity. Because all these people go back and go, wait, what? That was the first album he was on? Let me go find a copy of that. And bingo.
Yeah.
There goes this. So he can talk trash all he likes. We can turn out those lemons into lemonade just by the sales and whatnot. So it brings more attention back to Steelers. So that works out. It's too bad he's not a team player because this would have been great. But you know what? Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing with Mitch Perry. With Mitch on guitar. Mitch is a monster. He's played with some of the biggest people in the business, and he's humble. He's a low key guy. He's really quiet. He's humble. And it's going to be great to play with him and Dwain and Ron. Yeah,
and I remember, back in the day talking about Mitch Perry when I think it was like 1987 or 88, he was in the Michael Schenker group with, of course, Michael Schenker and Robin McCauley. So he's a guy that's been around for years, and he's one of those guys too, kind of like you, that really never broke out in a big way, but he's played with quite a few legends himself,
Yeah, he's played in Tallis.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, with Billy Sheehan and yeah.
Here's Tallis connection. This is kind of one of those connect the dot things. It's really weird. I've been friends with Billy Sheehan since '78. I've seen the original lineup of Tallis back in New York in '78.
Wow.
And so far back, Billy and I go, and we've been pretty good friends all these years. Like that, and he's always been very nice and approachable and humble, and we talk shop, and he's like really easy to talk to, just like we're having now.
Yeah.
And so the day that I was packing up to move out of what we used to call the Steeler Mansion was the gutted Roachfield storefront that we lived in. I had on my stereo, I was playing a Tallis record.
Wow.
And Mitch Perry he just happened to walk in as we were, packing his stuff and moving out, and he heard Billy playing a solo on this Tallis album.
Yeah.
And he actually wandered into my room and he heard this. He goes, "Wow, who is this guy? Sounds like Eddie Van Halen." who's this guitar player?
Wow.
I said, that's no guitar player. I said, that's a bass player, and that's my friend Billy Sheehan. And I held up the album cover. I said, the band is called Talus.
Yeah. And being somebody that knows Billy, you probably know this story. I've heard over the years Billy talk about the fact that before he ever played with David Lee Roth, the way him and Dave initially met was, I think it was back in 1980 when Talus actually opened up for Van Halen, and back then, I guess Eddie was considering about throwing Michael Anthony out of the band at that time, and they were considering having Billy Sheehan come down and audition, but I guess they decided not to do that.
Well, when you have there's something related to this. When you have a magic formula that works,
you
don't mess with it. Okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you compare that, say, to Steeler.
Yeah.
Some people in the business, there's people out there that like to trash talk you. You say, well, you suck and you can't play, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you know what? Steeler's songs were written by Ron. I played what Ron wanted. Yeah. No more, no less. I played what I was asked for. If I were to play more like that, I can't play like Bill. Nobody plays like Billy.
Yeah.
But if you have that kind of an ability to come in there, it's not going to sound like the same songs anymore. They're not going to be Steeler songs.
Yeah.
Billy writes for what Billy does, and Billy adapts to whatever band situation he's in.
Yeah.
And he makes it fit. He's enough of an old school guy like me, where we know what the roots are, we know where the pocket is, and every once in a while he'll step out of the pocket and do a couple little interesting things, but he'll go back to the pocket. That's what I am. I'm a pocket player. Yeah. I've always gotten in the pocket with the drummer, and that's where I stay, locked in that pocket. So that's what I did with Steeler. So when people come along and go, oh, you can't play, you this, you that. Hey, well, the Steeler record stands on its own. I played exactly what was asked for.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is Steeler's one of those bands. It was kind of like the launching pad, for you guys. Like you said, that's the first thing you guys did. And like talking about Yngwie Malmsteen, like you said, when he came to America, that's the first thing people ever heard him do. And you could probably attest to this. Rik, like you're telling me, like Steeler has got like a huge cult following. I mean, Steeler never broke out like say as big as say like a Bon Jovi or even a Keel. But the funny thing about it is you guys have had like this kind of cult status where, I mean, I'm sure you go on the internet every day and you hear, like you say, people just talking about that album, and it's that one album by that one band that came out years ago. People are still, talking about it.
Yep, it stands the test of time, and we probably would have had a little bit more of a boost on a breakout because if I was in the band, there was I wouldn't say it was just talk. Yeah. We were supposed to open. We were supposed to go up to the San Francisco area and open like one or two shows for Judas Priest.
Wow.
So, and here's a band called Steeler opening up for a band who has a song called Steeler in their set. But we were going to open for Priest, and then it got canceled because there was some kind of infighting between the band and their management, and the shows got canceled.
Wow. Now let me ask you, Rik, like, how long was Steeler actually together, and what led to the band breaking up? Was it when you guys started kind of having internal problems, or was it more of a thing with the label?
Well, the original lineup came out from Nashville, and that was with Mike Dunnigan on guitar and Tim Larson on bass and Bobby Eva on drums, yeah. And then they played in L.A. for about a year or so. They were playing. They went from like the bottom all the way to the top, so to speak. We're a self-contained band. They had their own lights, their own PA, their own truck, their roadies. They were like a professional touring type band in a club situation.
Wow.
But I think as Ron told it in one of the documentaries, Inside LA Metal, he saw what he was up against, the other kind of bands that were in LA, and I guess the band at that point, and I don't want to bespeak them because I wasn't in the band at the time, but I'm trying to remember what Ron said. Something along the lines of that he couldn't compare or compete with, like with bands like Rat and Motley Crue, with the guy. He needed something that was going to take it over the top. He needed the show kind of thing. I think he said he wanted a bass player and a guitar player that looked like rock stars or played like rock stars or something. And my name came up somewhere, and he said, Rik Fox, he looks like a rock star. That would be the guy you probably want to try out.
Wow.
And I just happened I just happened to have an ad in Music Connection magazine at that time. He called me up, and I met with him, and he gave me a demo tape, and he said, you know what, learn these songs, and we'll talk from there. And it was like no promises or anything. And I said, okay, and I took the tape, I learned the songs, and I went back, and I played just him and I. Mark wasn't even, Mark Edwards wasn't even there at the time. He was in Texas visiting relatives.
Yeah, now,
so Ron and I together, you know.
Wow.
And then, you know, I talked to Ron about my connection with Kiss, and Ron was a Kiss fan, so, you know, kind of helped, I guess, you know, I've been around. Ron was young, he was younger than I am, and I've been more experienced maybe, and that kind of, I brought that to the table with them. So, at some point, Ron took what I call a leap of faith, and he let go of the whole band. Wow. And that meant the truck, the lights, the PA, everything. The band went, only thing that stayed was the road crew and Ron's guitar. That was it.
Wow.
So he took a leap of faith. He brought me in, and then he and I just practiced together at the Steeler Mansion. And then Mark came back from Texas, and the three of us rehearsed as a three-piece. And then at that point, when they felt it was strong enough, Ron contacted Mike Varney, and he said, we need a guitar player from hell. Wow. Not realizing what kind of prophecy that was. Yeah. I was like, got a guitar player from hell, all right.
And now, was he problematic from the get-go, or like did it get worse as kind of time went on?
Say again?
Yngwie, I was wondering, like, was he problematic from the get-go, you know, or did it get just bad as time went on?
Well, we went to the airport, you know, to pick him up when he landed, and you could see as he was coming down the ramp into the terminal, this guy had a definite air about him. I mean, he was only like 19 at the time, but he knew who he was, and you see, it's like, I have arrived, the Viking is here, kind of, that's the impression I got.
Wow. Yeah.
And I wasn't like what you'd call problematic right off the bat, but as we started to settle down and work on the music, work on the songs, it wasn't too long after that where he just stopped in the rehearsal, and we're like, what's the matter? And he turns around to Ron, and he says, hey man, it's like, can you do anything to like make these songs a little bit more interesting, man? Because they're really quite boring.
Yeah. Wow.
And I looked at Mark, the drum riser, and we both had that look on our face, like, did we just hear what we thought we heard him say? And Ron did what I call the quickest slow burn, meaning like he got really red in the face. See, he was starting to boil. Wow. Yeah. And it's like the new guy just insulted the boss on his son. Real.
Wow. And it's funny because as talented of a guy as Yngwie may be, you know, like you always reading stuff, and he's always like getting infused with his guys that are in his band, or guys that used to play. Like you know, for example, he's had Tim Ripper Owens played on one or two of his albums. He's had guys like Jeff Scott Soto, great vocalists in their own right. And like I read an interview recently where he said, you know what, on all my latest albums, I don't want to have any other outside singers. I'm not a great singer, but I can do a decent enough job, and I'm just going to sing everything myself. You know, like again, Tim Owens, a guy that's played with Judas Priest and you know, Dio Disciples and stuff like that. He's kind of saying, you know, who needs this guy? It's like, wow.
Well, you know, as young as he was, you know, and I've been around the clubs, you know, back in Jersey and New York, and I had that under my belt before I even got to L.A. People in L.A. don't even realize that I was already a veteran of the New York scene. So being in a room with Yngwie, I didn't sweat him. He didn't intimidate me, and it's gotten to the point where I'm going to have a T-shirt made. You know, there's this thing about the director James Cameron, who did like Aliens and Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a really tough reputation for being very, very harsh on his crew. Yeah. And at the end of Titanic, the crew got together and had T-shirts made that said, "You can't scare me. I worked for Jim Cameron." Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm gonna have a shirt made, Jason. I'm gonna have a shirt made that says, "You can't scare me. I was the first bassist on U.S. soil to go toe-to-toe on a daily basis with Malmsteen, and then survive." Wow. That's amazing. You know, and you kind of talked to me a little bit about this before, Rik, but I was curious. A guy who's played both the New York scene and the LA scene here. What would you say is the biggest difference? I mean, one thing I noticed about the LA scene,
even more so today, but especially back in the heyday, the Sunset Strip and that, they got what's called pay to play. I mean, I've even been to shows, tribute bands and stuff. They got this thing where you got to give them a guarantee. Hey, give us a bunch of tickets. We're gonna give these tickets out for free, and we're gonna guarantee we can pack the house. And if we don't pack the house, we don't get to play here again. But they still got to pay the club owner. It's where the club owner gets like a bigger break than what the band's even making. It's kind of just a sad state of affairs for me, I think.
Yeah. We didn't have that in New York.
Yeah.
One of the last bands I played in, we did the Jersey circuit in upstate New York. It was called the E. Walker Band. I was number 7 out of 8 bass players in that band.
Wow.
But that was my day job, if you will, like 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
I played 6 nights a week, 4 or 5 sets a night. We did everything from Joe Jackson to Judas Priest. We were like a living jukebox.
Yeah.
I made cash money, and that was my day job. I got paid to play, and that was it. And when I first got to LA, they didn't do that. Pay to play wasn't in yet.
Yeah, but it was.
I think somewhere around 86, 87, that started to come in.
Wow.
And promoters started to put the burden of ticket sales all on the bands, and promoters weren't doing, quote, promoting. They may put an ad out, but they didn't really do anything to sell tickets. And they removed themselves from the whole responsibility and the insurance of putting the responsibility on the bands. Here, you go out and sell the tickets.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of people would be surprised. Like, even bands playing the whiskey. I mean, like, people might think, oh, a band like LA Guns, they've been doing all these years. They must be Tracy Guns, must be a millionaire. I'm afraid that's not really how it works.
That's true. That's not how it's done anymore.
And that's why a lot of bands, the way to make the money is, especially music business being what it is. A lot of bands don't even put out new music. So I really tip my hat to the ones that do, but most bands just making money off of merchandise, T-shirts, and other swag and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's done now. Everybody wants to take home a souvenir, and back in the day, there used to be tour books with the T-shirts and all kinds of little bracelets and tchotchkes and whatever they'd sell at the merchandise counter. Yeah. That's carried up. Kiss really taught the world about merchandising. I have to say, and it took off from there. And that's how it's done now. So, it's all about the swag, like you said, and take home whatever the memorabilia that you can get signed.
Yeah.
There's meet. Now they charge people for meet and greet. They charge you coming and going for whatever you can do.
Yeah.
Like that. So,
and it's funny too because, this guy that I'm friends with on Facebook, he's in a Kiss tribute band, and he was posting some the other day, like all this Kiss merchandise he had, and he was saying, I remember when I was a kid, and this kind of true of me. Like, I remember when I was a kid too, that you'd go to a concert, and you could buy a tour book for for $5. If you wanted a T-shirt, get the T-shirt for $10. Well, that stuff's a lot more money these days. They cost about the same. $20 for a tour book, and another $25 for a T-shirt, maybe another $25, $15 for a hat. But it's just funny that. The way that that stuff has gone up over the years,
Well, everybody's got their fingers in it. The house gets a percentage now, and
yeah.
And this one gets a percentage. That one gets a percentage. There's cost in printing, cost in shipping, yada yada yada. So the more people involved, the less you're going to make because there's more people who got their fingers involved in getting a piece of it. So
yeah. And Rik, now you're telling me obviously you and Ron are talking these days, but once Steeler kind of fell apart, I was curious. Did you guys talk much to each other, or did he kind of, with his Keel band, did his career kind of take off, and you guys just didn't hear from each other for years?
You should say that because Ron and I had one of our conversations while we were on the air on his radio show.
Oh wow!
He says, "Man, he goes, you can feel free, ask me whatever you like, man. I'm here for it. I'll answer any question you want, and what." Go for it, Rik. And I said, well, I got a couple of things I never really had closure on. And he goes, hit me, man, whatever it is. I'll, like that, well, I never really got closure on why I was at a Steeler. Because after that last show, it was May 21st, 83, we played Radio City. We were supposed to have a band meeting the next day. I said, Ron, you weren't there. I said, Yngwie wasn't there. It was just me and Mark. drummer, and Mark came up to me and said, "Listen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're breaking up the band and we're starting over." So I said, "Are you in?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Is Ron in?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, Yngwie's leaving. He's going to join Alcatraz."
Wow.
I said, "So I'm out?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Why?" He goes, "I don't know. It was just a decision." So I never really got a straight answer.
Okay.
As to I was not going to stay with Steeler.
Yeah.
And Ron said, Ron in his inimitable way went, "Well, if it was supposed to be a band meeting, and I wasn't there, then it wasn't a band meeting. So technically, you're still in the band." I said,
Wow.
"For these years, I wasn't, because you went on to Keel."
Yeah.
And he says, after he goes, after I tried a few more lineups of Steeler, I got the call to try out for Black Sabbath.
Wow.
So I didn't just from Steeler to Keel.
Yeah.
I went from Steeler to Black Sabbath. He goes, "That's why I broke up Steeler, because I got an offer from Black Sabbath, and I did some stuff with them, and that didn't work out. So when it didn't work out, I came back and I formed Keel. And I went, okay, I didn't know about that part.
Okay.
But why was he still not in Steeler anymore?" He goes, "You know what? It's water under the bridge. Okay, we'll sidestep that."
Yeah. Cool.
And we're playing together now. And I went, okay. I'm still not going to get a straight answer, but I won't beat a dead
horse. Yeah. Wow, I like that.
It's all positive now. So, and we're brothers, and we're going to be back on stage together again.
Yeah.
You know, if Ron had me come out and play with him in 2013 at the Whiskey. Keel played there, and I got up and I did. We did a Cold Day in Hell and an acoustic version of Serenade. I'm telling you, when I went out there on stage and we did Launch into Cold Day in Hell, and it's on video, it's on YouTube. Jake, the promoter, Whiskey, he filmed it and he put it up there. And I'm telling you, you can see it. You can see the magic, you know. And it's going to be like that in Ohio at the El Rosavilla, you know, and on May 10th for Keel Fest. When we hit that stage, it's going to be absolute chaos. People are flying, driving in from all over the country to see this. This is the concert event of 2019. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think so, and I'll tell you why. Because kind of like what you were saying, you know, this is a band that a lot of people have heard of, and maybe because of their age, never got to experience. Maybe they got that record, but they're like, man, I wish I was around back in the day. Could have seen this band, you know, in its prime. Well, this may be as close as they ever, you know, are going to get to that. So that's got to be why, you know. And let me ask you something, because you know, Ron Keel is a very talented guy, but now besides Keel, he's had these other projects over here. But I'm sure you followed. I got to ask. He had this one band called Fair Game, where he was the guy in the band, and he had all the other members were like females. And then he had this, and then he did this thing where Ronnie Lee Keel, you know, goes country. What did you think about those projects, or were you aware of them at the time?
Yeah, I was. He also had Iron Horse, and he had a couple other things. He did the Brooks and Dunn thing in Vegas. You know, hey, you know, the guy's got to pay bills. He's got to perform.
Yeah.
Service. You know, and it's like Paul Stanley said. It's like a smorgasbord. You know, you go to the layout and you take a taste of this and a taste of that. And well, I don't like that, but I'll try this. And
why not?
It's good. I'll have this again. You know, that's how kind of it is. You get different opportunities in life, and you want to try something out and get a variety. And that's great. That's good for Ron. You know, a lot of musicians do different things. You know, I don't do just metal.
Yeah.
I can play country too. I play all kinds of stuff. You know, I got a feel for things, and I pick up real easy. I lock in with a drummer, and we get a groove, and we can play pretty much anything. You know, funky, jazz, whatever. I don't like slap pluck, you know, but that stuff. You know, if it's got a groove, I can nail it. But yeah, Ron just tried out different things, like anybody could if they had.
Yeah, why not? And like you said, you know, at that point in time in his career, you know, that was kind of around the time that grunge was kind of a big thing, and you know, hard rock and metal acts weren't really selling. So you kind of do what you got to do. But and I just think that speaks volumes of the guy's talent, that you know that you've got the ability to do more than just be a one-trick pony, if you will.
You know, it's funny you mentioned grunge and rock wasn't doing as well. Then how do you account for bands like Poison and Van Halen still selling stadiums?
Yeah. But you may not realize this, Rick. But back around 1994, when Poison did that album with Richie Kotzen, that was one album that really didn't sell that well. And then actually, Poison kind of went on a hiatus for a couple of years, and Bret Michaels was doing a solo thing. And then you're right though, when they got back together and they just started just playing all the hits, and you put on that Poison Greatest Hits album, that's essentially the Poison set list now. And see, Poison at the point in their career, they don't need to make any new music. They're talking about maybe in 2020 making some new music finally, but they're at the point where they can go out, every couple of years for a couple of months in the summer, just around the U.S. here, and they make bank, kind of like Billy talking about Mr. Big. They could go like play 3 nights in Japan and make bank.
all the big bands that have so many hits, that's all they need to come to do is just do their hits, come out and do this and go home.
Yeah. And I like you're talking, you got a little bit of a Kiss connection. I don't know how big of a Kiss fan you are, but what do you think about claiming that this is their farewell tour finally?
They should have contacted me and said, "Come on, you were there at the very beginning. You should come out and be here at the end. It's your show."
Yeah. or at least you want to shoot some photos for us, Rik, on the farewell tour.
Oh yeah, I don't know about shooting photos, but
yeah.
I was there at the very beginning. I was there before they even had the name Kiss. I was there before Ace Frehley was in the band. Yeah. So since I was there watching the womb emerge from itself, whatever call it. Yeah, I was Kiss from the very beginning before it was Kiss, so I should be at the end. Yeah, but they're not gonna contact me.
No, I'm not so much asking that, but I'm just asking. A lot of people you read online. Yeah, I bet this isn't really their farewell tour, but the one thing I will say, the guys have been doing for about 45 years. I mean, 2019, I was reading marks the 45th anniversary of that debut album from 1973. And no matter what, you got to give it to the guys. That any band that's lasted that long, gone through that many lineup changes, and one thing I will say about Kiss, people say, oh, they're not really real musicians. They can't really technically play. But you know what? They're great songwriters, especially Gene and Paul. And if you listen to all the hit songs they have, I mean, there you go. You really can't argue with that kind of success.
It took them a long time to break. Actually, that happened with Kiss Alive because they. Bill O'Coin, God rest his soul, he was financing that band his credit card.
Yeah.
And it was just about to tank. And if it wasn't for what he did, who knows what would have happened. But they took a gamble. They rolled the dice. Kiss Alive came out and Rock and Roll All Night. It was that first big single that broke them. And then after that, it started to turn around. So that's when everything started to lighten up for them a little bit more. But they're not without. They're like a lot of bands without their drama. They put out on their lives in the band, and they've talked crap about each other behind in the books. And it's I guess there's some catharsis that's necessary in this business. That what it does to you, that you need to vent somewhere somehow, because otherwise you'll boil over.
Yeah.
And you put stuff out in the books about how you really feel about this, how you feel about that. People get a different perspective, a different picture of you. Wow, I didn't know he was that kind of person.
Yeah. It's funny, and another Kiss-related question is that I know you have somewhat of a connection to is Vinnie Vincent. Now, this guy's a very sad case because I mean he's been gone like from a music scene for like almost 20 years, and then he appears at this Kiss convention, at the beginning of last year, talking about going to make this little comeback, and now he's had a chance, like in Nashville, to first there's going to be an acoustic show, then he was going to do these 2 like shred shows, and both times cancels the show for whatever reason. Now I'm reading he's going to do some shows in Australia. He's going to do some other shred show, coming up in Nashville. Sometime in June, and it's just sad state that as many fans as this guy's had, he's been away for 20 years. This may be his one last shot of anything, and he's blowing it.
Yeah, I don't know if I should really comment on him because a lot of people know he stole one of my songs, and the guy, our producer, who was his bass player, stole one of my songs, gave it to him. So I kind of got a really bitter pill on that one. But you know what? These constant start with him. It's karma. It's karma coming back to bite him in the ass. He was going to do that thing like he said in Nashville. His Carmine Appice was going to get together with him, this is going to bring us to a great segue to somebody I wanted to talk about, which was Jim Crean. They were going to bring Jim Crean in to sing on it, and it was done. Vinnie said he didn't even know about it. It was done through Vinnie's manager. And it looked like it was going to launch, and then Vinnie went, maybe I'll just do a shredding thing. and then the shredding thing turned into nothing, like wet tissue paper, and it just the whole thing just helps.
And before we get into Jim Cream, and this is what I want to say about that, is I'd also seen in regards to Jim doing the show with Carmine and Vinnie and Tony Franklin was going to be the bass player. He had posted like a demo of this old Vinnie Vincent song, Back on the Streets, and Jim did a really great, cool version. It just popped up all of a sudden, and I'm like, man, what is this? He did
a great version of it.
Yeah, this is really cool sounding, and that's another and from what I understand, the reason he canceled that show was because, like you said, the promoter or whatever, he's the one that arranged Jim Cream to be the singer, and Vinny didn't like the fact that, no, I want to pick who the singer's going to be. I'm like, how stupid, man. Jim Cream, he's worked with the Peace Brothers. He's got his own thing going as a solo artist. Man, if you want to have any kind of comeback, to have your first show be with this Jim Cream guy and Carmine Appice and Tony Franklin, man, that would be a killer comeback show. Why would you cancel something, that had the potential to be huge,
Well, she's a finicky woman now. Oh, that's all
there you go. Now, before we get into Jim Cream, the only thing I want to ask you in regards to the Vinnie thing is, you mentioned the thing about him stealing your song, or his bass player, Let Freedom Rock. Now, I was curious, did you ever try to go after him at the time, or was it more of one of those things that you just didn't have the money to hire an attorney in that?
I did attempt to go after him on that.
Oh, okay.
See, the thing is right before he joined Cinderella, Fred Corey, the drummer Fred Corey, he was playing locally in L.A. here with a band, well-known band called London.
Oh, yeah.
And Fred was a friend of mine, and he used to come over to my apartment all the time, and he heard the Sin demo. He loved it. Wow. He loved the songs. He said, I want to play with you. And I said, okay, great. And then he got with Cinderella. But sometime in between that, when I had a publicist was also working for Vinnie Vincent, and I got a copy of his demo before the album came out, and they said you might want to hear this, and I put on Let Freedom Rock, and I was like, that's my song, what? That's On the Run.
Yeah, just change the title. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So your connection was cutting out there.
I said. So basically, what they did is they took your song and they recorded, and they just kind of changed the title. Thought nobody would notice.
Well, I was in the studio that one night. I showed up at the studio, and there was Vinny sitting at the console listening to the mix down.
Yeah.
And he, and Dana and him, he said, hey, I really like this song On the Run. Maybe sometime up the road, maybe I can maybe re-record it or something. Have you involved?
Oh, wow.
We never decided what have you involved meant. That was never defined.
Yeah.
Was the last that was said about it. So, at that point, he was already cognizant of my song. Dana played for him. Wow. Dana was his bass player. Hey, you're going to hear this song. Vinny, check this out. This song's killer. Hey, you think we can get away with it? Well, you can't copyright a hook. Let's go and do this.
Yeah.
So I contacted Chrysalis, and I said, you can't release that record because that's one of my songs on there. And they were like, what are you talking about? I had told them the story about how it was, what I told you.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're going to have to get back to you on this. And about 15 minutes later, I got a phone call from Dana telling me, hey, you can't sue us. We'll counter-sue you and bleed you dry, and we'll sue you for being an asshole.
Yeah.
You can't copyright a hook. I said, well, George Harrison got sued for My Sweet Lord. It's the same hook as He's So Fine by the Chiffons.
Yeah, wow.
Lots of this copy things, big guys, and they get sued for it.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
yeah.
And he goes, you go ahead, just try it, like that. And he goes, hey, I talked to Carmine. Carmine says, pay him $1,000, tell him shut the fuck up. I'm like, what are you talking about my business for with Carmine?
Yeah. Wow.
So, the album came out, and it tanked. It didn't go anywhere, luckily.
Okay, yeah.
So I bumped into Mark Slaughter and Bobby Rock at the NAMM show, and I held up the cassette, and I said, you want to talk to me about this? And they kind of just they got quiet. They looked down and went, you know what? We really didn't know what we were doing because Dana said just do it. Vinny said just do it, and we had to do it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a funny story, kind of connected to this whole Vinnie Vincent thing. A couple years back, I'd interviewed Robert Fleischman, who's of course the singer on the first Vinnie Vincent Invasion album, and he was telling me one thing that really frustrated him. He said that in his opinion, the thing that the biggest mistake Vinnie ever made in regards to that band is allowing Dana Strum to kind of make all the decisions and kind of control the band and everything. And he was saying, if Vinnie had not allowed that guy to have so much control, they could have been that band could have been much bigger. But Dana made all the decisions, and basically, like, if you look at what happened after that second album failed, Dana kind of put the screws to Vinnie, and like they said in that Slaughter song, we stole your record company, and you're out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, like you said, karma is karma, but that has a way of coming back at you,
Yeah. Well, it happened.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about it. I took a lot of heat about it on the Vinnie Vincent board. So, like, why the hell? Well, who is Rik Fox, and why would Vinnie need to steal a song from him? Lo and behold, about 2 years ago, there's some podcasts on that come out on Facebook.
Yeah.
One of them's called Three Sides of a Coin. It's three guys who talk about
I've heard them. They're very good at what they do. Yeah, and one of the guys actually used to work with Keel, so he's got a lot of knowledge about what he's talking about.
Yeah, they had Mark Slaughter on, and they said so. And I didn't even know this was coming. Somebody, after it was recorded and aired, sent me the link to the podcast, and they said, so is there any truth about this Vinnie, when you were Vinnie, that Rik Fox claims that Vinnie stole one of his songs that he sang, and it was like this quiet beat for a second, and Mark goes, yeah, that's true.
Wow.
I'm like, validation.
Yeah.
Now, for that, my friend Chris Chichak over in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Decibel Geek podcast, he also interviewed Mark Slaughter and asked him the same question. And again, Mark kind of hesitated for a second. He goes, yeah, it's true. And then he interviewed Bobby Rock. And he said, so that it's not like they were ambushed. He was asking legitimate questions.
Yeah.
And so did Vinnie really steal the song from Rik Fox on the Run? And they were like, yeah. So I got validated 3 different times, 2 by the same person. And when I got those links, I put those up all over Facebook. And you know what?
Yeah.
All that harassment shut up. It stopped.
And it's kind of funny. You just telling me that story there, because talking a little bit about the 3 sides thing, and then you have 3 different forms of validation. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, and it's like, so Rik really wasn't bullshitting. He was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So all of those people who gave me how to eat crow, because they were proven wrong and I was right. Nobody just believed me, but now it's been validated. It's the same thing with WASP, and how I've had to try and constantly prove that I was in WASP. I was lost, and then recently I got a link from a friend of mine, and he sent me this link of our interview with Randy Piper. It's an excerpt from a bigger interview, and they asked about Rik Fox being in WASP. And Randy just validates. He goes, we Rik out from New York, Jersey, I forget, whatever. And we tried him out, played for a while, and the guy says, is it true that Rik came up with the name WASP? And Randy goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I would never take that from him. He goes, Rik came up with the name. He goes, I think WASP stung his hand or something. He goes, I forget the story, how it goes. But he goes, but he just said the name WASP to Blackie. And he says, Blackie stole it from me. He put the periods in it. He goes, Blackie stole the name from Rik. And he goes, yeah, pretty much. And that's validation. That's been all over Facebook. And you know what? That link to that interview, Facebook gives you evaluations on how a certain post is doing. And that one post has gotten such a high profile evaluation. It's like, it's doing 85, 90% better than most posts on this page, whatever. That link is getting a lot of not viral, but it's making a lot of rotation. People are hearing that.
And talking about going,
all of those, all of the people who said I was a liar, that I wasn't in WASP, because Randy going, yeah, he was in WASP. He came up with the name.
Yeah.
So again, people have to crow and shut up because the truth is now out.
Yeah. And you're talking about going viral, Rik. I mean, I dare say that Rik Fox has a much more, like, at least internet presence than, say, Blackie Lawless. And here's what I'm talking about. Outside of Blackie Lawless, I don't think anybody could really name who else is in WASP these days. And it's funny, here in America, WASP has almost kind of died out in the sense that WASP is still around. They're still touring. But the thing is, they really don't tour America anymore. He's touring mostly in Europe because, from what people tell me, like a band like WASP are much more popular in Europe. So, and people said they talked to Blackie, and he's like, well, I make a lot more money touring Europe than I ever would in America. So, why even bother? So it's kind of funny
Danny Trucks had been about everything, and pretty much the shows in the United States, they're all clubs.
Yeah.
And WASP has a big stage show. He's not going to try and put 5 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag. He's not going to play a little stiff. He can't fit his microphone stand because it'll hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
So he's a really tough guy to work with. So and he gives people a hard time about it, and he verbally abuses people and whatnot. So he can get away with that in Europe. He can put his foot down and say, "I'm going to get it." But if you notice something. A lot of the festival build over like Wacken and Wacken and those big festivals in Europe, WASP is not up on top anymore. They've slowed down a few notches. I mean, they're kind of slipping down below Uriah Heep now.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. 'Cause I'll tell you, back in the day, WASP was a decent band. I mean, the thing is, if you look at those first 3 WASP albums, those are probably the most loved albums. That's when WASP was really much more of a band. Today, it's just become Blackie Lawless' solo project, if you will.
You know what, Jason? It's always been Blackie's solo project. He just didn't enforce it back when I was in the band. It was a bit at time. But like Randy said in one of the interviews, when Electric Circus, I think it was, The Last Command came out.
Yeah.
Or before the album came out, Blackie said, he goes, "Look, here's a picture of me on the cover. Here's a picture of me on the back. Here's a picture of me in the Super Bowl."
Where's the band? Where's the band?
Randy, that's when it was a work. It's always been a solo band from that point on. And once he got full control, he was the producer, the writer, the arranger, the this, the that. He wore all the hats. It wasn't going to be anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of times these days, I understand he's playing all the bass and all the guitar on the album. I'm sure that's also to not have to pay the bass player except for touring. So who knows?
Well, I did an interview with Darren Upton. He's the author of the book "WASP: Sting in the Tail."
Okay.
At the UK, and we were on the phone for like 3 hours, and I'm very appreciative to Darren reaching out to me, because you represent a missing puzzle piece in the history of the very early origins of WASP. So that's why your voice in this is very important to the book. Yeah. And he said you represent a really strange position in the whole map of WASP. He says from the first album up until Crimson Idol, it's WASP fans. From Crimson Idol on, it's Blackie Lawless fans.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
There are people who are behind you and support you and believe that you actually were the original bass player in WASP and that you came up with the name. And then there are people after that who really don't give a flying rat's ass, and they don't care about you or anything you brought to the table, because it's all about Blackie. So that was interesting when he put that. It's kind of true,
You really are kind of, in regards to WASP, I would say the missing link in that sense, because I'm just telling you from my own knowledge of the story as a WASP fan. Before even having Facebook or internet or anything, even back when I was reading like Circus Magazine and Metal Edge and stuff like that, and Hit Parader, I remember every once in a while hearing, reading the name or hearing the name Rik Fox, and that's what's, I think, great about you putting your getting on Facebook, because that's your little place to kind of tell your story. And so finally people get a chance to say, okay, I've heard the name Rik Fox all the years. Okay, so that's who this guy is. And I think it's great that you're finally getting your story out there. And, people can either like it or not like it, but it's your story to tell. So I think it's great to kind of finally have an outlet to get that information out there.
You know what's really fun, Jason, is I get everything from, like you said, legendary this and iconic that, bass player, and to has-been who's never was, and failed bass player. You really consider the source of where the negative stuff comes from.
Well, even if somebody tells you, like, you're a has-been that's never been, that's more of an I've been, if you know what I mean. So like, my comeback would be, well, okay, I'll take that, but, what have you done that's even reached that level of, success? Again, playing in a band with Ron Keel and Yngwie Malmsteen, these people trashing on the internet, probably something they've never done before, Yeah,
well, and that's Steeler stands the test of time.
Yeah,
it's like in the top 5 of most people's top 10 stranded on a desert island, heavy metal albums.
Yeah.
It's the record that introduced a lot of people to that kind of music. So I feel good about that. I did something positive. I made a positive difference in somebody's life. That's the reason they picked up a bass and started playing. I've heard those things too. And at the end of the day, that's what's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's why I got to tell you, Rick. That's why at the top of the interview I introduced you as a legendary, because it, to me, having heard the name all these years before you and me connected on Facebook a couple years back, it's like I said, it's become this myth, this legend. Oh, okay, so that's who this guy is, because people forget back before there was an internet about 10 years ago. You might read the name Rik Fox like in a Metal Edge magazine or something like that, but you never seen the guy's picture. You have no idea what he looked like. And that's what the internet has really changed, and that's why I kind of refer you to as a legendary, because it's the myth I've heard about.
It's funny too, is I get all the time for Vicky Fox was in Enough's Enough.
Yeah.
And
Rick,
we're not the same. Yeah. I get people saying, "Hey man, dude, I saw you at such a concert. Man, you guys kicked ass on stage." Like, oh, you didn't see me because I wasn't in that band at that time, so I don't know what you're looking, but you didn't see me. And they're like, "Oh, but I thought it was." No, it wasn't me. So, like anything goes, like Wild West and people's thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about because we were talking a little bit about Jim Cream, and he is the guy you're working with these days. Now, I know he has an upcoming solo album that you play on. Do you play on the whole album or just a few tracks? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to talk about that. It was maybe about a year ago. He called me up. I don't know how he got my number. I remember. I think I asked him, but I forgot. And I said, he says, "Hey, Ricky, my name's Jim Crane," and he calls me Ricky.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm Jim Crane." He goes, I work with Carmine and Vinnie Appice," and I said, "Okay." And he says, I've got some solo records out," and I said, "Okay." He goes, "I have a lot of stars playing on them." I said, "Okay, so why are you calling me?" And he said, "I want you to play on my next album." And I'm looking around. I'm obviously alone. I'm looking around going, "Me? You want me to play? Why?" And his answer was, "Because you deserve it. You're Rik Fox." And I said, "Well, that's it?" He goes, "Well, you know what? I've been watching you." He goes, "You got a high profile on Facebook. I've been watching you for a while, and I know you played with Steeler. I know you with WASP and like that, and you played with a bunch of other bands. And I've seen your stuff on YouTube. Obviously, you're a good player. And he says, I've seen people put out a hard time. I've seen people bashing you." And he goes, "It's about time that got I'm going to do something about that." I went, "Okay, well, what do you want me to do?" And he said he gave me a song, to learn, and which led to 2, which led to 3, like that. But he gave me it was like, this is a great honor. He gave actually the single to be on the album.
Wow.
It's a song called "Broke," and the song when he sent me a copy of it, the rough tracks, the rough mixes, and this song was like made for me.
Wow.
I mean, the title of the song, what the lyrics, what it represents about being a man who's been broken, and coming back like that with a second chance, and just the arrangement of what I heard, what my bass line could be in that, and I started to play along to it, and without even realizing, it's like I must have been subconsciously channeling. Like I have to use Bob Daisley's name because he's like one of my icons.
Wow.
To play what I felt like was a Bob Daisley style bass line in this.
Wow.
And then he gave me a second song, which has Frank Domino on it, and I learned that. And then I got to talking with Steve Hond over in France. He's with Hollywood Monsters. He's going to be on the album.
Oh, cool.
And,
wow.
And he says, "Are you on the Chris Holmes song?" And I said, "There's a song with Chris Holmes?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Maybe we should ask Jim if he'll let me play on it." He goes, "That would be cool. It'd be 2 ex-WASP members from 2 different on the." And he said, "Yeah, do that." So I contacted Jim and I said, "Can I play on the song with Chris?" He goes, "Ricky, that's a great idea." I recorded the 3 songs. The one with Frank Domino. The single "Broken" is I'm playing with Vinnie Appice on that.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Talk about validation. Yeah. So, Vinnie Appice's on drums. Robbie Lochner from Jack Russell's group, he's on guitar on that. Wow. And then Steve Hond is on guitar on the song with Frank Domino that I got.
Wow.
But the Chris Holmes song had some kind of strange technical glitch. So Jim took that back and he re-recorded it over on the East Coast with his guys. So that knocked me back down to 2 songs. So to answer your question, I'm on 2 songs, one of which is the single, which is "Be Broken." I'm not at liberty yet to say which song I'm on that has Frank Domino, but the fact that I'm with Frank Domino, and that was my connection to Angel over the years. It was like almost no. You know, we talked having me come in and play with the band to play with Angel. This is as close as I got so far, you know. And I told Frank when I saw them, when Frank and he came out here in LA and played, and I said, you recorded on Jim's album? He goes, yeah. I said, I'm on the song with you. He goes, oh, that's cool. You know, so that's kind of a...
I know you were a big Angel fan back in the day, so that's got to be a pretty cool thing, you know. And now let me ask you, Rik, I don't know if we talked about this before, but because I seen some of your early photos. I don't know if it was intentional, that's just the way you looked at the time, but you really had really had a Punky Meadows thing going at the time. Maybe it was, your hairstyle, but was that something that just because you were a Punky Meadows fan, or just you kind of had that look?
Well, we didn't really know. When Angel's first album came out around 75, there was the black and white pictures of them in the studio that Niels Lozo were shot. And you couldn't really tell kind of what they looked like because the way it was printed, it was too dark.
Okay.
So you didn't know what they looked like live. You just heard the record, and that was the studio pictures of them.
Yeah.
But it was. I walked in the record store when Hell of a Band came out, the second album, and there they are on the cover in the palm of the hand, chained all together. Yeah. And you flip it up. There's your first close-up look at them in the white costumes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was their deal breaker, right? That was the game changer right there.
Yeah.
But my hair looked more like Mickey's.
Okay.
For a very time. I didn't know what Mickey looked like, but that's what my hair looked like anyway. So it was like looking in a mirror almost.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's funny.
Right? And then as I grew it out, as the layers grew out, and I started to brush it back, it started to turn into looking like what Punky's hair looked like. So it's just how the layers grew out, and just how it was styled.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because you probably didn't even think that back in the day, but and that's not just something I've noticed, but I've noticed a lot of people commenting that you looked like Punky Meadows at the time, but it's kind of funny hearing going online and reading all the stuff, I'm sure, but people think, oh, you look like this, but it's how you looked at the time, you know?
Well, we hung out with them once after one of the concerts in New York. They went out to eat, and I was talking to Punky, and his wife at the time, Fran, was there, and she walks up, and she's looking at me, and she looked at Punky, she's doing this double take. You know, and I had a book with some pictures from bands I was playing in, and Punky at him, and Fran looked at the pictures, and she goes, "What band?" He goes, "That's not me, that's Rik." He goes, "No, that's you."
Wow.
He goes, "No, that." Well, even Punky's wife thought the pictures of me looked like Punky. You know.
That's funny. That's funny.
It's funny. It's a funny story, like that. But I don't know, Jason. It's like when you're starting out and you're kind of like looking for an identity, trying to find out who you are.
Yeah.
In a band like that, and where you're going to blossom from or become. Yeah. But I saw Angel, and that's it. That's the look that I identify with. So that's always been my look since 76.
Yeah. And what do you think of the fact that I've read that I think Frank and Punky are getting like a new version of Angel back together. What do you think about that? And I think they're actually recording a new album.
Yeah, they are. They've got all new white outfits. I've seen the pictures of them on tour. Yeah. They've toured with my friends in the group Stars. That's great. A great match. Perfect. Stars and Angel, and they're and my friend Alex Kane. He's playing with Richie Rano and Stars like that. So
yeah.
And like that. So that's a great thing. And thanks to Jim. Segueing back to Jim, I am very appreciative of Jim giving me that opportunity. And the album should be 2 months. I think he's going to shoot a video for the single, so we talked about that. He said, "I want you on the video."
Cool.
And he said, "Ricky, I want you to be my touring bassist." So I'm gonna hopefully after the Steeler thing, if I'm always available if Ron does more Steeler shows.
Yeah,
this is kind of like a beta test. If this works and we can do some more Steeler shows, I'm sure Ron will be up for it. But in the meanwhile, if Jim Green says, "Ricky, I need you to play bass, I'm going to go on tour," then I'm going to go play with Jim, too,
How cool.
Like that.
Wow. Well, see, Rik, you and I, a couple months back online, we were chatting, and you were kind of telling me you're kind of feeling down, I guess, the time. But look at all the stuff you got going on, and I think that is, you want to talk about validation for a minute? I think that's the real validation. I mean, Jim Cream to me is a proof that good guys are still out there in the world. I mean, the fact that this guy would call and say, "Hey, Rik Fox, I'd like you to play on my album. I've heard all the crap you've kind of been through, man. You deserve this." I mean, how cool is that? A guy that's maybe just read about you online, never even met you at that time in person, kind of like reminds you of back in the early Steeler days, where you meet this guy Ron Keel, and he kind of gave you your first break. I mean, how cool was that to get a phone? I mean, that to me, that's the ultimate validation right there.
Yeah, well, Ron Keel gave me my first break on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it was he and Chris and the band Virgin.
Oh, wow.
and then, which eventually became Sin. That was became the original lineup of Sin. So Ian gave me my first chance in the Jersey circuit. Before him was Sebastian Black. At that time, it was known as Sebby Castle. Sebastian was the lead guitar player, the band leader of the Martian Rock Band. So that's actually if you want to start the dots at the very beginning. I got my first break with the Martian Rock Band. That's how I became a veteran of the New York rock scene with CBGB's and Max's Kansas City.
Wow.
From there, I went over to Jersey. Ian and Chris gave me my break over there doing the glam thing in the club. And then once I got to Los Angeles, it was going to be WASP, but it got tripped up. But it doubled back, and Ron gave me that break. Ron helped put me on the map out here. So, to put it in perspective, Jason, it's like, I heard an interview recently on the radio with Henry Winkler. We play Fonzie.
Yeah.
They said, you've always got this great attitude when you're in an interview. What is the story with that? And he says, in his Fonzie voice, I wake up every day and I just look around and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything that I've got. I'm grateful for everything that's happened, and just so happy that I've got what I've got. And you know what? That's what it is, Jason. It's the attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, I love guys that have that attitude, because funny thing talking about Henry Winkler, I used to be a huge Happy Days fan when I was a kid, and his little role as Fonzie, that's originally just supposed to be like for 1 or 2 episodes, and then that was like the breakout character, and then they even wanted, I heard, which Ron Howard didn't like, is he was supposed to be the lead actor in that show. Henry Winkler really broke out, and they wanted to call it, Fonzie's Happy Days, and it's kind of funny that, that was just supposed to be like a 1 or 2 time appearance on the show, and look at what it turned into, Well,
producer Gary Marshall, he saw the gold mine and what each player brought to the table, and he developed character more and more and more. So, and Henry went into detail and talked about what Ronnie Howard did and what he brought to the table, and how he wanted to be a director, and what Penny Martin brought to the table, and what it's like Posse, these other guys. Well, all these guys said everybody brought something to the table. It was an ensemble cast, and it was a fun show to work on. And he says Gary Marshall taught him how to be an executive producer. He taught him how to film, how to shoot camera, how to do angle, how to do lighting. Yeah. I've worked in the film industry, so I can appreciate that. I've seen kind of how that works a little bit. Yeah. So from the other side. So I knew exactly what Henry was talking about. But his whole mantra about being grateful. And that's very important. Look, I haven't done as much as most people. I've done more than most, not as much as some. Yeah. But I'm grateful for what I've got. I'd like a little bit more. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. And no offense here, like I said, you're a little footnote in hard rock metal community, but you're a little more of a footnote than a lot of people are. So you do have that kind of going for you. And then kind of talk about the TV shows. Another show I used to like back in the day was Three's Company. John Ritter, he was a big star on that, and the guy that was on the show with him that played his best friend Larry, I guess they were really best friends in life. And he said, since John Ritter died, he says, we used to have so much fun on the show, I cannot even watch that show anymore because it just makes me so sad that he's no longer here.
Yeah. It's funny, you mentioned me several times as a footnote, and that's been mentioned in a couple of different books on heavy metal. Yeah. But this footnote is going to kick itself up somebody's ass, New York style. Yeah. And stomp down on a couple others. I'm gonna make a mark at some point. More than I have. And it's like you said, guys like Ron Keel give you a chance, give you a break. Yeah. Jim Crean, he's giving me a chance, give me a break. I'm grateful for those things. A lot of people don't get that.
And I can tell in your voice you are. That's the thing.
Yeah, Jim is great. Jim is grateful for what he's got. He over on his end of the country, out in Buffalo, he opens up for all the national acts. He supports all these national acts. He's the singer for both Carmine and Vinnie Appice's projects. Yeah. And he gets all his A talent on his albums.
And I'm sure knowing Jim for a few months or about a year now, I'm sure you know this part of his story. Jim got his start he's also in this other national tribute act called Hair Nation. They're like a real popular cover band in New York and that's how he got his start. That's where Carmine and Vinnie, I think, first seen him, and then they had him start singing for their Drum Wars project, which started out as a drum competition thing. And a few years back, he got an opportunity to do a couple solo albums. He's working on, I think, the third solo album now. So, look at what that guy is, shot into.
Are you talking about his group, Hair Nation?
Yeah.
Yeah, and his fiance Colleen, she's a monster drummer. She's his drummer.
Yeah.
Like that. And he supports all these national acts, and then they come and sing on his records, and he's got monster talent on it. He's got Tony Frankel, and he's got his last album, Insatiable, was the last album that Jimmy Bain ever played on. He's got that on there. He's got Vinnie and Carmine. He's got Rudy Sarzo, Frank Domino, Mike Tramp. Phil Lewis. He's got like a whole stable of A-list stars, and he says to me, Ricky, you're going to be one of those people now. You're in that stable with all those A-list stars. He goes, people are gonna respect you now. I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell, but I really think once his album hits, because I remember last time his solo album came out, the last one, talking about with Mike Tramp and Phil Lewis and all Jimmy Bain, all these other guys on it. It was a pretty big seller. It was all over the internet. People were going. He even played out here in LA. It was a big show. So people are following him. So I think. Once with this new album, he'll now have like 3 solo albums worth of material to do and cover. So I do think people are going to start. Oh, okay, Rik Fox. Yeah, this is the guy we read on Facebook. Okay, he's playing these shows. Let's go catch it. And do you know who else is in the touring band, or are you at liberty to say?
I'm sorry. Say again.
Are you at liberty to say who else is in the touring band, or do you not know at this point?
I don't know. Just if Jim says, Rick, we're going to play here, play there, we'll fly you in, whatever. That's all. He mentioned a couple of different guitar players that he really likes, and that they're working on the record. So, he'll ultimately make his choice. And just if he says, we're going here, we need you. We're going there, we need you. Then that's it. What's really cool is Jim's starting to do a lot of pickup more on interviews lately.
Yeah.
And he's mentioning me in there. They say Rik Fox played on my record. And we'll do some shows together and stuff like that. So it's really kind and generous and gracious for Jim to do that. Like you said, there aren't that many people left in the business that are considerate like that and have those kind of manners and courtesies, professional courtesies. And Jim's one of those people. So I'm really lucky to be hooked up with him, and the guy's an amazing singer, so I'm really grateful for that,
And let me ask you one more WASP related question, Rick. Have you had any? Have you been in touch at all recently with Chris Holmes in the last couple of years? Do you have any talking with him?
I haven't spoken to him in a long time. His wife, Kathy Sarah Holmes, is his manager, and everything kind of goes through her.
Okay.
And I know he was in France. He moved out. I forgot if he's in England now or somewhere else. He's somewhere else in Europe that he's moved to. But
yeah.
I mean, we're still on good terms, friendly terms. Chris and I always got along. Chris had my back when he did interviews, and they asked me to brought my name up.
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, Rick's a good guy." He goes, "Blackie always talks shit about Rik." He goes, "But Rick's a good guy." We got pictures together at the NAMM show. And Chris is a sweetheart. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, that's the other thing I've been noticing the last couple of years. You're getting a lot of these like little endorsement deals and like making these little appearances. I saw that you went to the Rainbow Show yesterday. How much fun was that?
That was fun. A whole bunch of my friends were playing. I didn't get to see all of them, but London played and Fifi LaRue played. My friends in Kicks played, but I couldn't stay late. I had to leave, so I missed Kicks. But Jizzy Pearl played. A whole bunch of my friends from back in the day were playing. Everybody kicked ass. It was a good event. It was great. People want to talk to you, interview you, take pictures, and I wore my the Metal Voice T-shirt for Jimmy K over in Canada. He does his show.
Yeah.
And you know, and I promote. You know, people back me, I back them. You know, you back me, I back you. You know, I promote you. If people do something nice for me, I promote them back. That's the way I am. You know.
Yeah, and so you know, getting back to the KeelFest, that's going to be like your first live performance in quite a while. How? I mean, I can hear the excitement in your voice, but like, is you guys going to have to rehearse much for that, or have you talked at all about doing any kind of rehearsals?
Yeah, that's next week. Ron's flying out here. Whoever else needs to be here. We got 2 days of rehearsals back to back, and then that'll be it until the show. And then
I was curious. Obviously, you and Ron are pairing now, and kind of some of his Keel bandmates. But I was curious, why wasn't the original drummer taking part? Is he just retired from music, or?
Which drummer do you mean original?
Mark Edwards, the one you played with.
Mark, yeah. Well, it was years ago after Steeler that you know, a lot of musicians have side interests, the hobbies that they do.
Yeah.
You know, Stephen Pearcy's into like racing cars.
Yeah.
Mark Edwards is heavily into motocross.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's cool.
And he had a motocross accident, and he hit what they call a whoop-de-doo. He went up, he had airtime, and when he came down, the bike came down on him and broke his back. So he's never been able to play drums after that.
Oh, wow, I never heard that. That's awful. Well, at least he's still with us, and he's still doing what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a successful businessman in Dallas, in Texas. Works for a huge PR firm. We've talked, you know, once or twice, and we've talked about Steeler in the old days and whatnot, and like that. There was even a rumor of talk of a Steeler documentary, but we have no live video footage of the album lineup with Yngwie and myself.
Wow.
There is no footage that we know of, so we can't do a Steeler documentary. So that fizzled.
Wow.
But so Mark can't really play drums anymore. I mean, he can walk, but he can't play drums.
Wow, that's too bad. Now,
it'd be nice to play with him.
Yeah. Now, the only other thing I wanted to ask you about, Rik, before we go is you mentioned to me at one point that that you're pretty good friends with Jack Russell. You guys still keep in touch?
Yeah, we can. You know, whenever they come around and play locally here, you know, I'll go contact them and we'll go down and see the show and whatever like that. And Jack invited my wife Tamara and I out to his boat, and you know, we had a little cookout on his boat. And I had a leather trench coat that he fell in love with back in the '80s.
Yeah.
And he said, if you ever think about letting go of that coat, please think of me first. And then we got back in touch with him, and I said, hey, you still interested in that coat? He goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. I said, well, I still got it.
Wow.
And I was going to sell it to him. You know, we got a price, and when we got down to his boat, you know, my wife and I looked at each other. I went, you know what, let's just give it to him.
Yeah, well,
we did. Well, it wasn't about money. It was just about
friendship.
You know, two friends and whatever. And we got on the boat, and I went, Jack, here, this is yours.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Jack doesn't have the money for it right now. I said, Jack, I didn't ask for money. Keep it. And he put it on. So he put the coat on. He gave me a big hug, and we got pictures of him. And the guy was so happy. You know, he finally got, after all these years, he got the coat he wanted. And he looks great in it, you know, and he was real happy. And we've been in touch. And, you know, if you know, we go to see him at the club where they're playing, sees us in the audience, he gives us a little high sign, hey, you know, how you doing, like that.
Yeah.
We'll go say hi after the show and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, Jack's a guy. He's a sweetheart.
Yeah, I'll tell you a real funny story. I've never met the guy in person, but I've interviewed him twice, like this over phone, and both times just super friendly, down-to-earth guy. And he told me, no, here's my number. Anytime you want to interview me, buddy, just call me up. And at the same time, I contacted the other band, you know, that he used to be in, that kind of threw him out of the band or whatever. And I contacted them about doing an interview, and they told me, well, you know what, buddy, we don't really like the numbers on your website. We tend to only do interviews with the bigger sites. I'm like, you know what? Screw you guys. And it's not even that they didn't want to do an interview with me. It's just that Jack was just like so down to earth. Hey man, you know, you call me anytime. Yeah. Hey man, I'm down for doing an interview time. And I just thought, you know, this guy is just so down to earth. You know.
That's what matters. At the end of the day, that's the bottom line. That's what matters. You know. And again, it comes swinging it back to being grateful. Here you come along, say, Rik, you want to do another interview? I'm like, yeah, I'm grateful for that. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of years, Rik. And we're going to wrap this up because it's getting late. But I'll tell you what. After you do the KeelFest, maybe do a third interview in a couple of months, and you can tell us how that went.
Oh yeah, I'll follow up. Yeah, and by that point, we'll have a little more news about the Jim Crean band project.
Okay, well, Rik, thanks again for talking to me.